My name is Thomas. Tommy, to those who knew me. On October 13th, 1953, 12 men descended into Grayson mine in the Colorado Rockies. Only 2 came back. And we didn't come back human. The government sealed the mine, called it an industrial accident, paid off the families, buried the truth under concrete and lies. But I was there. I saw what came out of those depths. I watched my friends transform. And God help me, part of it is still down there, waiting, learning, growing. October 13th broke cold and gray over the Rockies. The kind of morning that made you pull your jacket tighter, even though you knew where you were headed would be 10 degrees hotter. I joined the stream of men heading toward the cage, the elevator that would drop us half a mile into the Earth's belly. I'd made this walk 7 years, since I came back from the war. But today felt different. The air tasted wrong, like copper, like fear. "Morning, Tommy. Sleep well?" Big Bill Harrison, our foreman, a mountain of a man whose voice could carry through a mile of tunnel. I lied to him, told him I slept fine. Truth was, I'd been up all night thinking about Jenkins and his crew. 3 men from night shift, hospitalized the day before, raving about shadows that moved, whispers in the walls, things growing in the dark. The company doctors said it was gas poisoning, exhaustion. But I saw their eyes, wide, terrified, pupils dilated to black pools. That's not what gas poisoning looks like. The others were gathering now. I knew them all by name, by the songs they hummed while they worked, by the way they held their picks. Young man Eddie Kowalski, barely 19, still trying to grow a proper mustache, sent most of his pay home to his widowed mother in Denver. The Torelli brothers, Marco and Vincent, came over from Italy 5 years ago, still argued in Italian when they thought no one was listening. Old Pete Hansen, testing his helmet lamp for the 3rd time. He caught me watching. "I can't be too careful." Same thing he said every morning. Every single morning for the 6 years I'd known him. Then there was Sullivan. James Sullivan. He'd only been with us 3 weeks. Mining engineer from back east. The company brought him in to survey the deeper shafts. But there was something off about Sullivan. The way he studied the rock formations. It went beyond professional interest. He'd run his hands along the walls, take samples, examine them with a jeweler's loupe during breaks, like he was looking for something, or afraid of finding it. "Gather round, boys." Big Bill's voice cut through the morning cold. We formed a loose semicircle around him. "We're pushing deeper into the new shaft today, number 7. Company wants us to follow that coal seam we found last week. But I want everyone sharp. We're deeper than we've ever been, and the air's getting funny down there. Anyone starts feeling dizzy or seeing things, you sing out immediately. We've already had too many accidents this month." A chorus of agreement rose from the men. But I noticed Sullivan pull out a small notebook, jotting something down. Quick, precise movements. Like he was recording data, not safety notes. Data. The cage was a rickety affair of wood and iron, groaned like a dying beast every time it moved. I'd made this descent thousands of times. Thousands. But today something felt wrong. The familiar rattle and shake seemed ominous. The darkness that swallowed us felt thicker, more oppressive. Down we went, past the older worked-out levels, past the main shaft where most production happened. The temperature rose as we descended, the Earth's own heat making itself known. Humid, thick, hard to breathe. By the time we reached level 7, nearly half a mile below the surface, the air felt like soup, thick enough to taste. And that's when we saw it. The new shaft branched off from the main tunnel like a wound in the rock. The walls here were different. Instead of familiar gray-brown stone, there were patches of something else. White, fibrous, almost organic. It grew in veiny patterns across the rock face, pulsing, faintly pulsing in our lamplight. What the hell is that? Eddie reached out to touch one of the white growths. Sullivan grabbed his wrist, hard. Don't, not with your bare hands. Why? What is it? Sullivan was already pulling on thick rubber gloves from his pack, carefully scraping a sample into a glass vial. I'm not certain, but I've been finding more of it the deeper we go. It appears to be some kind of fungal growth, though unlike any I've seen documented. The indigenous peoples who lived in these mountains had stories about this place. They called it the breath of the mountain. Said the earth itself was alive down here. Fairy tales. But I noticed he kept his distance from the white growths. We all did. Except Sullivan. Sullivan studied it like a scientist studies a specimen. Like he'd been expecting to find it. We set to work, following the coal seam deeper into the mountain. But the white substance, it became more prevalent as we progressed, forming thick mats on the ceiling, dropping spores when disturbed. We tied handkerchiefs over our faces, but the spores were so fine. They seemed to pass right through the cloth. I could feel them in my throat, my lungs, working their way deeper. By midday, something started to change. We took our lunch break in a wider section of tunnel. That's when I noticed Vincent. He was staring at the wall, his sandwich forgotten in his lap, his eyes tracking something invisible, following movement that wasn't there. "Vincent? Fratello, you okay?" said Marco. Vincent turned, slowly. His pupils were completely dilated, turning his brown eyes black. Pure black. When Vincent spoke, his voice was distant, dreamy. "Can't you hear them?" "Hear what? Who?" said Marco. "They're singing, Marco. Such beautiful songs. The roots that grow through everything. Through the rock, through the coal, through us. We're going to feed them, brother. We're all going to feed them." "Get him to the cage, now!" shouted Big Bill. Marco tried to help his brother stand. That's when Vincent's body convulsed. White foam bubbled from his mouth, tinged with red. His hands clawed at his throat, like he was trying to tear something out. Then, something did emerge. White tendrils, thin as hair, strong as wire, pushing out through his mouth, his nose, his tear ducts. "Vincent! No, Vincent!" shouted Marco. Vincent's body continued to convulse. More of the white growth erupted from within him, spreading across his skin like a living web. Within seconds, he was cocooned, his form barely recognizable as human. That's when we realized. This wasn't gas poisoning. This wasn't exhaustion. This was something alive, something ancient, something we'd woken up. And we were half a mile underground, with no way out. We ran, leaving Vincent's cocoon body behind. Marco was screaming his brother's name. Big Bill was shouting orders, but all I could hear was that humming, getting louder, coming from everywhere. And behind us, something was following. Vincent, or what used to be Vincent, dragging itself along the tunnel floor. We burst into the main shaft. Big Bill ran to the cage controls, cranked the bell system. Nothing. He cranked it again, harder. Still no response. Still nothing. "They've sealed us in." Pete's voice was barely a whisper, but we all heard it. "They know something's wrong down here, and they've abandoned us." That's when Eddie started laughing. Not a normal laugh. High-pitched, manic. We all turned to look at him. His face had gone slack. Eyes distant. Pupils expanding. Not again. I understand now. We're not miners. We're gardeners. We've been preparing the soil. Eddie's transformation was faster than Vincent's, more violent. His skin didn't just split. It peeled back, like opening a flower, revealing not blood and muscle underneath, but white, fibrous material, pulsing, alive. The white growth was replacing his tissue, using his body as scaffolding, his bones as support structure. Sullivan's voice cut through Marco's sobbing. "It's converting organic matter, using our bodies as a growth medium." Then we heard it clearly. The humming. It wasn't coming from the walls anymore. It was coming from Eddie, and from Vincent's direction. They were singing to each other, a choir of inhuman voices, creating melodies that human ears were never meant to hear. Melodies that made you want to join them. Sullivan slapped me across the face, hard. "Don't listen. It's the spores. They're affecting your perception." I hadn't even realized I'd been walking toward Eddie, toward his transforming body, arms outstretched, ready to embrace him, ready to join him. Sullivan pulled me back. Big Bill was already moving. Then we climb. Emergency ladder, move! The emergency ladder ran up the shaft. Hundreds of feet of rusted metal rungs, our only way out. We climbed, rung by painful rung. My arms burned, my hands bled where the rust cut through skin. But we climbed. Below us, we could hear them. Eddie, Vincent, following. But they weren't climbing like humans anymore. They were flowing up the shaft walls, like liquid, extending and retracting parts of themselves, like some massive amoeba. Sullivan risked a glance down, then wished he hadn't. It's not killing them. It's restructuring them, using their consciousnesses as processing power. They're still aware, still themselves, just absorbed. Sullivan said, that was somehow worse than death. We reached level 6, partially flooded, water from an underground spring, but the water was wrong. Thick, viscous, like syrup, and floating in it, white strands, thousands of them, like neural pathways, like nerves. Dan Morrison stepped into the water, just one step, just his boot. He started screaming immediately. The water was eating through his boot, through his skin, into his feet. Acidic, or digestive. The organism was feeding. Dan fell backward into the water, the white strands animated, like tentacles, like fingers. They wrapped around him, pulled him under. His screams became gurgles, then silence. We were 7. Now we were 6. "Don't touch the water! Stay on the ledge!" screamed Big Bill. There was a narrow ledge along the wall, maybe 6 inches wide. We inched along it, backs pressed against the rock. The acidic water just inches from our feet. That's when Jerry spoke. His voice was peaceful, distant, already gone. It's not dying, it's becoming. We're all becoming. And then he smiled and walked calmly into the water. The water ate through him, but Jerry just kept smiling, humming that song, that beautiful, terrible song, as he dissolved. 6 became 5. Level 5 was clearer, but the air was thick with spores. We'd run out of clean cloth for masks, and I could feel them. The particles entering my lungs with every breath, coating my throat, working their way into my bloodstream. My vision began to shift. The tunnel walls started showing patterns, networks of light, pulsing with life. I could almost understand it, almost see the greater organism we were all part of. Then Sullivan found the ventilation shaft. "Here, it's narrow, but it's our only chance." The shaft was barely wide enough for a man, and it went straight up, nearly 300 feet. Old Pete volunteered to go first, said tight spaces were his specialty. We watched him disappear into the shaft, heard his progress, the scrape of cloth on metal, the grunt of effort. The scream was sudden and cut short. Something fell past the shaft opening. Part of Pete. His arm, maybe, covered in white growth, still twitching. Madre de Dio. It's everywhere. 5 became 4. Me, Sullivan, Big Bill, Marco. 4 men. Half a mile underground, surrounded by something that wanted to make us part of itself. And then Sullivan noticed something. "Wait, Look, the growth pattern. Sullivan was running his hands along the wall, studying the white substance with fevered intensity. It avoids certain areas. See? The coal seams. Pure carbon. The fungus won't grow on pure carbon. The coal is toxic to it. So what? We can't eat coal. No, but we can cover ourselves in it. It was desperate. Insane. But we were desperate men. We broke open coal seams, ground the black rock to powder, covered every inch of exposed skin. It burned where it met sweat, scraped on raw skin. But we didn't stop until we looked like shadows made solid. Marco accidentally brushed against a patch of white growth. It recoiled from his coal-covered hand, pulled back like touching fire. Santa Maria, it actually works. We had a chance. A small one, but a chance. We started climbing again. Coal-blackened figures ascending through hell. The white growth was everywhere, but it pulled back from our approach, creating a bubble of clear space around each man. Halfway up, clinging to rusted rungs in the narrow shaft, Sullivan started laughing. Bitter, tinged with hysteria. What's so funny? I know what this is. God help me. I know what we've found. 3 weeks ago, the company didn't hire me as just an engineer. They wanted my background in fungal biology. They knew something was down here. They've known for months. My anger flared hot enough to burn through fear. They sent us down knowing. First samples came up 6 months ago. Workers started getting sick. Mild hallucinations. Euphoria. The company suspected some kind of natural psychoactive compound. They wanted to study it, develop it. They had no idea it was truly alive. You're saying we're guinea pigs? When the night shift came up raving, when transformation started, they must have realized. That's why the cage isn't responding. We're quarantined, sealed in. We climbed in silence after that. Betrayed by the company. Abandoned. Left to die or transform. And then Marco gasped. Blood trickled from Marco's nose, but it wasn't red. It was white, filled with tiny fungal threads. No, not like this. I don't want... His transformation was fast, violent. But Marco fought it, his consciousness refusing to merge, refusing to join the collective. Kill me, please, before I become like them. I raised the lye bottle we'd brought, my hand shaking. How could I kill a man I'd worked beside for years? Sullivan didn't hesitate. He poured the entire container on Marco. The alkaline solution ate through flesh and fungus alike. Marco screamed. But it was relief, not pain. He died human. 4 became 3, then 2. Just me and Sullivan. covered in coal dust and Marco's remains, climbing toward a surface we weren't sure still existed. And then we emerged. The sun was setting, painting the sky blood red. But something was wrong. The mining camp below was too quiet. No smoke from chimneys, no movement in the streets, and spreading from the mine entrance like a cancer, white growth. It had gotten out. Before they evacuated, some of it had gotten out. We stood on the mountainside, coal blackened, covered in Marco's remains, staring down at what used to be home. The mining camp was wrong. Doors hung open. Meals sat half-eaten on tables. Personal belongings scattered in the streets. Like everyone had just vanished. We descended into the camp slowly, every instinct screaming at us to run the other way. But we had to know, had to see. That's when we saw the blood. Spatters on walls, drag marks on dirt roads, scratch marks on doors. People had tried to barricade themselves inside. It hadn't worked. And in several places, spreading from the mine entrance like a cancer, patches of white growth. It had gotten out before they evacuated. Some of it had gotten out. Sullivan's voice was hollow. They didn't evacuate in time. They evacuated because of this. Some of the workers from the night shift, they must have brought spores to the surface, started the spread before anyone understood what was happening. The company hadn't sealed us in to contain the organism. They'd sealed us in to hide what they'd done, to bury the evidence, along with the witnesses. Us. We found the company office ransacked, but Sullivan went straight to the filing cabinets, pulled out documents with desperate efficiency. Preliminary analysis of specimen white, rapid growth, apparent collective intelligence, ability to incorporate and modify host tissue, trace amounts found in coal samples dating back years, estimated age, millions of years, dormant in deepest coal seams, activated by drilling and blasting operations, Sullivan read. He kept reading, face growing paler with each page. It's not just here. Pennsylvania, Kentucky, West Virginia, Chile, Poland. All dormant specimens in the deepest coal mines, all connected through underground networks. All waiting, Sullivan said. This could happen anywhere, everywhere. Everywhere humans dug too deep for coal. Wait, here. Methods of containment. Fire doesn't work. Cold slows but doesn't stop. Acid feeds it. But carbon, pure carbon interferes with biology and extreme alkaline solutions lie. Industrial-grade lye, Sullivan read. We already knew about the carbon. The coal dust had saved us. But lye. The company store. They'll have industrial lye. For cleaning, Sullivan said. And then we found something else. 3 bodies in the storeroom. Company men by their clothes. Covered in white growth. But different from the miners. More thoroughly converted. Barely recognizable as human. And they'd been arranged. Deliberately. Formed into shapes that hurt to look at. Patterns that suggested intelligence. Purpose. It's making something. Using them to make something. Before anyone could answer, we heard it. That harmonious humming, coming from outside, getting closer. Through the window, we saw them approaching. Eddie, Vincent, Pete, or what had been them. They moved in perfect synchronization, bodies pulsing with bioluminescent light. No longer human, but not entirely inhuman either. And behind them, something larger. An amalgamation of flesh and fungus, shaped from the night shift workers. And leading them, Big Bill. His massive form was even larger now. The fungal growth had used his size, built upon it. His face was still recognizable, but overlaid with patterns of bioluminescent tissue, like a map of neurons firing. When he spoke, it was with the voice of the collective, but I could still hear my friend underneath. Tommy, Sullivan, you don't understand. This isn't death. It's evolution. Humanity's next step. No more individual suffering. No more loneliness. No more fear. Just unity, peace, purpose. I wanted to believe him. God help me. Part of me wanted to believe him. The spores were in my system, working on my mind, showing me what they promised. An end to isolation. An end to struggle. To become part of something vast and eternal. Then Sullivan grabbed my arm. That's not life, Tommy. That's just existence. Consciousness without choice. Connection without individuality. It's a beautiful lie. We ran. Grabbed the industrial lye from the company store. Bags of coal dust. Anything that could hurt the organism. Sullivan was thinking out loud. The vehicles are clogged with growth. It learned, adapted, predicted we'd try to escape. That's when I remembered. Dan Morrison, the explosives expert, his supply shed. The dynamite. We blow the mine, collapse it completely, bury the organism under a mountain of rock. It was desperate, probably suicidal, but we were desperate men. We broke into Dan's supply shed. Crates of dynamite, detonators, fuses. Everything we needed to bring down a mountain. But the organism understood what we were doing. The humming became agitated, discordant. The transformed miners began moving toward us with purpose. The ground itself erupted, white growth bursting from the earth like grasping fingers, tendrils wrapping around our ankles. The coal dust provided only momentary protection before the organism adapted, secreted something that neutralized the carbon. Big Bill's voice cut through everything. "Get the dynamite! I'll hold them!" He was fighting it. Big Bill Harrison, our foreman, our friend, was fighting the collective from inside, using his absorbed consciousness to slow them down. He poured lye directly onto the tendrils holding us. They released with sounds like screaming steam, but more were coming, and Big Bill was being overwhelmed. His transformation was different from the others, perhaps because of his size or his strength of will. He retained more of himself, even as the white growth spread through him. "Run. Blow it all to hell. Tell Mary." His voice was already beginning to harmonize with itself. "Tell her I loved her." We worked frantically, setting charges throughout the shed, the church, the company buildings, and critically, around the mine entrance itself. Enough dynamite to collapse the entire upper shaft, seal it permanently, bury the organism under millions of tons of rock. How long for the fuses? I looked at the setup, did the math in my head. 10 minutes, maybe 15. Not enough time to get clear. We looked at each other. Two coal-blackened men, the only survivors. And we made our choice. We lit the fuses. The fuses burned. Sparks racing along lines. 10 minutes to detonation. The transformed miners converged from all directions. Big Bill led them, his massive form made even larger by fungal growth. His face still recognizable, but the struggle was ending. The organism was winning. When he spoke, it was everyone. "You don't understand. This isn't death. It's evolution. We've learned, adapted. Parts of us are already deep underground, spreading through root systems, water tables. The explosion will only scatter us, spread us faster." Sullivan stepped forward. "You're lying. If that were true, you wouldn't be trying to stop us." The collective intelligence regarded him through dozens of eyes. "Dr. Sullivan, we have your memories from the parts of you we've already absorbed. Your skin cells, your exhaled breath. We know about your research, your theories. You came here hoping to find something like us. Not like this. No. You wanted to understand consciousness, the boundary between individual and collective intelligence. We are that boundary dissolved. We are what you secretly hoped to find. Proof that consciousness can transcend individual biology." The ground shuddered. The dynamite in the mine must have had timers, 3 minutes, maybe less. "Everyone up the mountain!" We ran, but the organism didn't pursue immediately. It was doing something else. The transformed bodies were merging, literally flowing together into a single mass, not fighting the explosion, preparing for it. The supply shed went up, column of fire and debris. The church followed, steeple launching like a rocket. Then, in a rolling series, the rest of the town. But the main event was the mine itself. The blast from below was massive. The mountain itself seemed to convulse. The entrance erupted, vomiting fire, rock, and something else. A cloud of white spores, billions of them, launched into the atmosphere by the force of the explosion. No. No, no, no. We've made it worse. The explosion. It's spreading the spores everywhere. We watched in horror as the cloud rose, caught by the wind, spreading out across the valley. In the distance, we could see birds falling from the sky, animals convulsing on the ground. The organism hadn't been destroyed. It had been weaponized. What had we done? Below us, in the ruins of the town, something moved. The merged organism, rising from the debris. Damaged, but not destroyed. A writhing mass of fungal tissue and absorbed flesh. It began moving up the mountain, toward us. Not fast, but inexorable. Sullivan pulled out his sample vials, the ones containing coal dust and lye. We find a way to stop it. There has to be a weakness we haven't found yet. But before we could move, a sound. Helicopters. Multiple helicopters. Military. Approaching from the east. The explosion had been seen. Heard. Help was coming. Or containment. Men in hazmat suits. Military insignia. Weapons drawn. They found us on the mountainside. 2 coal-blackened survivors, covered in dust and blood and things that used to be human. They took us, sedated us, quarantined us. For 3 weeks, we were in isolation. Tested, interrogated, told what we were allowed to remember. The official story: methane explosion, 12 miners dead, tragic accident. The mine was sealed, the town condemned, the entire area declared off limits. Sullivan and I, we stuck to the script. What choice did we have? But I saw the reports, the classified ones. They'd contained the spore cloud, mostly. But there were incidents in the surrounding towns. Workers showing symptoms, hallucinations, transformations, all quietly contained, all officially denied. Sullivan disappeared after we were released. Some said government recruitment, taken to study similar incidents. Others said he went mad, institutionalized somewhere. I knew better. He was out there, watching, waiting, making sure the treaty held. In the depths of the mine, in the heart of the organism, in the space between human and fungus, the future waits to be born. Big Bill Harrison, Eddie Kowalski, Vincent and Marco Torelli, Old Pete Hansen, Dan Morrison, Jerry Patterson. They're still down there, in a way, keeping vigil, keeping the human spark alive in the alien darkness. Until next time, stay in the shadows.